Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Oz Pro Am Sim Series brought to you by HJ Plant Repairs. Of course, you are on FGM eCast. I am Stuart Brown, your host for this evening, and we're at the Nurburgring at the Grand Prix track for the first round of the European leg of the Oz Pro Am Sim Series Series 2. It's the Intercontinental GT Championship as we look to run this series across 3 different continents. Not really continents, definitely. Finishing in, we'll call it Australasia. I don't know, that's not a continent, but that is where we will conclude the series after the Americas. Starting out here in Europe, and of course, no better place to start than a place that the Formula 1 drivers recently visited. Of course, as you are aware, the series here changing. Last week, on Tuesday evening, we brought you the wild card race. And that concluded with Cooper Murray jumping up into the Pro Series here. So he has got a spot in this series now, and a solid turnout for tonight for round 1 of the official series. So looking forward to bringing that to you. Just got about 3 minutes to go in official practice before we jump into qualifying. Brought to you by Ferguson Group Media. So we're just waiting for this one to conclude before we get cracking.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all?
Good evening, Scotty. Sorry about that there. I'm not sure what happened. We're off and running again now, so it's all good. Just giving everyone a quick run through on the first of our races in the European leg of the revised format for the Oz Pro Am Sim Series, and giving everyone an update on Cooper Murray, who took out the wildcard spot in last week's round as well, so he joins the main series. So we've got some really strong drivers in here. How has the day been treating you?
Long day at work. Travelling to and from Sydney from the Central Coast is not easy, but hey, we're home, we're keen, we're sitting down, and we're ready to listen to the glorious, glorious sounds of those big V12s from the Aston Martin. How big's the engine? The Vet's only a V8, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure the Ford's a V8 as well.
Yeah, we're only running the 2 cars here, so there is no Ford, which is not that disappointing, to be brutally honest. Oh, there we go. Shots fired already. But yes, no, we've got the Aston Martin and the Corvette only tonight. So in the GT1, that's what was voted on by the drivers. So off and running in this one. So yeah, we've got the 6-litre, probably 7-litre, sorry, in the Corvette. I actually don't know that. I'll find that out before we go too much further. And yeah, the glorious V12, as you said, of the Aston Martin.
Yeah, look, I mean, I can understand it. We're coming back from, obviously, the GT3 class in the last season of Oz Pass, as it's affectionately known by the participants, and going from, 6-7 cars, very, very hard to manage the balancing of power. A fixed setup series, of course, to all the fans out there that are watching from home. None of these drivers can do all the tweaking that they like with their setup to get it the way there is. About all they're going to be able to change is the brake bias. Is about the only thing that they will be able to tweak. So when you're dealing with such a wide variety of cars, it is a lot harder to get a handle on the balance of power, because setups can really tweak the way that the car drives. Recently, I've been getting myself into some fixed leagues in the McLaren in the GT3 series as well, and really feeling some of the struggles that Luke Bergens was going through in the last season, trying to manage those rear tires. It is an absolute struggle. So I have a lot of sympathy for Matty Cardelloni and the rest of the guys that are on the balance of power and setups team within Oz Pro Am Sim Series. So moving through to the GT1 class, it does simplify that. There is only a maximum of 3 cars that are available within that class, and trimming it down to 2 is also a good idea as well. It means that balance of power is very simple. GT1 been around for a very, very long time. Getting it right is the baseline setups are 9/10 of the way there. So just some minor tweaking. It is still series specific fixed setup, so it's not the baseline setups that are available to you through iRacing. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well.
Yeah, I did just jump in and check, and we were spot on as always. A 7-litre motor in that Corvette. A little bit down on power to what I was expecting. It does list in the specs for the vehicle 590 brake horsepower. That doesn't seem like enough. Particularly against the Aston, but you know, it is what it is. That's what it says. As you say, fixed series here, taking away a little bit of the guesswork for the drivers, and anticipate with the testing that was done in the pre-season that these cars will be fairly closely aligned overall. Obviously, strengths and weaknesses across the tracks, but rear-wheel drive. High horsepower, relatively high horsepower cars, and I've driven the Aston just recently to get an understanding of how it goes around here. I've driven the Corvette before, and it's a pretty sharp piece, so it should be good racing tonight. We've got some really strong drivers in the field, and we are into qualifying on behalf of Ferguson Group Media. In fact, we're jumping on board with the qualifying sessions here this season and handing out the pole awards, so I'm expecting that they're going to be a little more hotly contested than last year. It was the Jack Boyd show for a majority of the season. In fact, I'm pretty sure he took out basically every pole position that there was to win.
No, I think Jeff Connell took one away from him.
He did indeed. Actually, you are spot on. So Jack Boyd probably not going to have all the traffic his way. Cooper Murray, that wildcard entry, a very, very strong driver. Over 7,000 I rating, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it means that he generally wins when he does compete. So between himself, Jack Boyd, Luke Bergens, of course series improver Glenn Boyd from last season. We've got Tom Katsadonis as well, who put in a strong performance last week. So plenty to look forward to in season 2 of this one, and do be aware, of course, pretty much all the drivers on track are racers in real life in various forms of motorsport. So keep that in mind. It isn't just sim races here. They have real on-track experience as well.
Yeah, it's with an adaptation. Obviously, there's been a lot of testing sessions thrown up to try and get the drivers and the whole field right the way through on the same page in terms of how the cars feel, what the setups are like, what needs to be tweaked. You know, you sort of name it there. So a lot of the drivers have been working their way around the cars, figuring things out, still getting the feel for things. I did get a chance to drive the Aston myself. Boy, that engine sound is absolutely beautiful. Love it. But they are very, very heavy cars. They don't want to, even though they're sort of got all this grunt and everything, and I really like the idea of the cars themselves, they are not easy to get turned. If you are within the iRacing community, it's something very, very akin to the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car.
Yep.
Drives in a much very sort of similar format, except it's got a lot more grunt behind it and not so much of a whiny engine and drivetrain. But either way, look, they're all fantastic, Stuart. And the other aspect that these guys are going to be dealing with as the season goes on is a lot of them are going to still be getting used to these cars, because these things are not all that widely raced. There are official sessions out there for them, but I can tell you that the official sessions very rarely get to official status, which I think is somewhere between 6 and 8 drivers required. So yeah, they are not a popular series.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. And it's going to be interesting as well with the massive amount of tracks that we're running at here. Of course, this series running right through to its culmination on the 2nd of February next year. So got a lot of different tracks to cover here as Jack Boyd puts in the fastest lap at the moment, a 150.29, 3 seconds ahead of Cooper Murray. So he's really got the wick burning on at that Aston Martin. And Daniel Webster jumps in right behind him with a 50.87. So they're the two fastest so far, 5 and 3/4 minutes to go in this session. But it isn't a widely contested car, as you say. So with the extent of the track variation that we're going through, it's going to be, again, strengths and weaknesses of the cars, strengths and weaknesses of the drivers, very much highlighted as we make our way through this season.
Yeah, look, and I honestly, that probably does. You see, it can go both ways. I mean, if the car and the driving style, where it's a lot of very, very heavy trail braking, I think that's the 488 machine. Of Dennis Kotarik facing in the wrong direction. it's very heavy trail braking, and what that says to me is that there's a lot of skill that can be applied to the car to get it around a course, get it to turn in, and picking up the throttle and times, how you can set people up for passes. So I expect more overtaking. The cars, like we said, very, very similar because they've been around for such a long period of time. The balances of power has had, instead of, getting cars added to the class here, there, and everywhere, a la the Corvette, in the GTE class, they've had a lot more time to sort of settle things down and balance it out a little bit. I'd be very, very curious to see if the Corvette feels as heavy as the Aston Martin, because I mean it's a V8 or V10 or whatever it is versus the big V12 of the Aston Martin. Theoretically, it should be a little bit lighter and a little bit more nimble. So most of the drivers in the field look to have gone. Well, actually, it's a reasonable split.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
it's slightly weighted in favour of the Aston Martin, but.
Sorry, just on the top there, we've had Jack Boyd put in a 49.89 and Cooper Murray a 49.89 as well. I don't have the thousandths listed on my screen here, but it's already on between those two. Luke Bergen's right behind them with a 50.01. So the times here tumbling. We started out with a 53. We're already down into the high 49s.
Yep, and that's good news for the season as well. So don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure Stuart's already covered it, but just to cover things again, Ozpass runs a very, very different style of race session setup, shall we say, is probably the best way to talk about it. There's two races. There's a 15 lap, 25-minute. I might have those the wrong way around, but
no, right.
it's 5
minutes. We've got a 25-minute and a 45-minute run.
That's the one. So there you go. So the benefits of that, and it's not just one race and done. It's where you finish in that first race. It's all about setting yourself up for the 45-minute race, because
do you remember we're running a reverse grid too?
Are we running a reverse grid?
Yeah, reverse grid second race here. So you're still absolutely spot on with what you're about to say. So please continue.
Okay, that changes what I was going to say in the second half of things this evening. But that first race result is still worthwhile because you want to put yourself up in front. You want to throw the gauntlet down. You want to challenge your competition. There's chaos in the final quarter. Oh, looking for a couple laps to be completed. Someone was around up there in the background. Was the 11 machine of Matthew P. Johnson coming to terms with things. And there was a fair few cars that were in the back sector of the lap trying to get a lap down. Oh, listen to the noise of those things as they go down into turn number one. Gitarik is in the Corvette by the looks of things. And who's that just up in front of him is the 69 machine of Luke Bergens as well. Another big consistent performer. So, and there's another one just in the rearview mirror of these two guys as well. It's a Boyd Motorsport car. I didn't pick up who it was. But times are close. There's going to be, look at that, in the 150s. So let's just segment Cooper Murray, who's gone quicker than Jack Boyd at the top of the timesheets, which is throwing down a 149.46. Then you go to Bergens with a 150.01. He is just over a tenth away from Jack Boyd. From there, you throw it back to Cardaleone, a 154.1. Yeah, there's a 0.4 of a second gap there, but how about this? 0.15 of a second back to Tom Katsadonis. So there's a battle pack forming. But wait, there's more. Another 0.15 of a second throws us back to BJ Kennedy, followed by the first of our Corvettes, Josh Perwin, only 0.07 of a second further back down the road in 7th position. I tell you what, we've got a hell of a field. Brady Buchanan's a long way back. That's normally not as far back as I'd be expecting to see Buchanan, but again, it's about coming to grips with the cars, get yourself settled. Glenn Boyd hasn't done a lap yet, and that surprises me.
Yeah, and even Daniel Webster, a really consistent performer from last season, just behind that pack that you're talking about there as well. So we've got plenty here. Another thing that I'm going to be very, very keenly keeping an eye on, as you mentioned earlier, Luke Bergens really battling with that McLaren last season to make pace out of it, and showing some strength in that. Definitely no question about whether or not he can drive. So when he is in the same equipment as Jack Boyd, Cooper Murray as well, it's going to be really cool to see how fast he can go and how far he can push that car in challenging for the front of the grid. As we've got 10 seconds to go now in the Ferguson Group Media sponsored qualifying. And at this stage, Cooper Murray's put the cue in the rack. He is done. We're on board with Jack Boyd. And he has completed his lap. And that is going to be how they sit. So let's jump into this grid and have a look at it for the first time in Season 2 of Oz Pass, as we're going to call it. We've got Cooper
I like
Murray.
the name.
Yeah, I think it's much better. The Oz Pro-Am Sim Series, the mouthful. So Oz Pass is absolutely where we're headed for the rest of the season. We've got Cooper Murray and Jack Boyd on row 1. Cooper Murray, congratulations on your first official pole in the series. Luke Bergens, Matty Cartaleone in row 2. Tom Katsadonis and BJ Kennedy row 3. We've got Josh Perwin, Daniel Webster in row 4, followed by Justin Schweikert, my apologies, Justin Schweikert and Brady Buchanan, Simon Lartner, Trent Laves, well down for Trent as well on row 6. Look for him to make his way up through the grid. So we jump onto our second page there. We've got Peter Hunter and Glenn Boyd, followed by Jeremy Clark, Sam Lehman, Matty P. Johnson, and Dennis Katarik, and Ian McMahon as well, a little bit further down than we usually see Ian. Currently in 19th position. So,
I tell you what, is that the Jeremy Clark? Are we fortunate enough to have the man who introduces the stick himself? No, it's Clarkson.
Yeah, but he could be running under an alias. He could be running under an alias. So, a number of drivers here are going to probably make their way very quickly through this field as well as they come to grips with the car and the track. Talked about it in the pre-show. So 19 cars on track at the moment. As was touched on, we've got a 25-minute first race, followed up by a 45-minute main race. Reverse grid following on from this one. There is a compulsory pit stop in that race as well, but these cars not probably going to get 45 minutes long.
Is it just me? Or are Cooper Murray and Jack Boyd in very similar liveried cars?
They are indeed. So I can tell you, because I forgot that you were away last week. They are in the same team. They are challenging to enter into the Global Porsche Championship, and yeah, they are on board in a new team that they've jumped into with engineers and what have you. So very, very serious, but no surprises that Jack Boyd is involved in a team of that nature, given his strong performance last season. So yes, you are spot on. Keen eye.
I have actually seen Jack Boyd running a lot in the... I've been running a fair few of the 911 Porsche Series races of late, and I have seen a lot of Jack Boyd, and it's very consistent, very dominating performances. So, again, not out of the ordinary for what we're seeing for Jack Boyd, and I think Ozpass is a really good opportunity for him to chill out, hang out with his dad, and share something with his dad. So I think this series, yes, he's still going to be driving for personal pride, but I have a feeling that this might be his just sort of pride and joy. And he won't be taking... He'll still be pushing himself for a reasonable result. He still demands that of himself, but this is what he's here to enjoy racing, you know?
We're off and running.
Yeah, off and running for the first time this season. Ozpass into our first season race. It's going to be Murray on the inside. Jack Boyd is going to be forced to line up alongside him. Bergen sticks the nose of the white Aston Martin down there. Bergens gets it a little bit loose, and he slides a long way down the order, all the way back to 6. I think he's still dropping his cars around everywhere in the background there. Schweikert, is around. The 777 machine of Perwine is also around. So Bergens with it all to do in the opening laps.
Irwin, we've got Lavis, we've got Katarik, Lartner, Clark, Hunter, Kennedy. I think the register there just for the run wide at the start. But certainly that first turn, cold tyres, always going to be challenging. That tight right-hander, followed by the sweeping double apex left-handers as we get around here at the Nurburgring F1 track. And you can see there's a huge gap that's developed back to the rest of the pack. And that is because of that start. So I'm not really sure where to go there. We'll have a quick look back. Jump back on a replay here just very quickly. See what we can find out, as we've got cars very wide there, and I think here is where we see all of the action unfold. Yeah, indeed there. So Webster getting turned around. We've got Buchanan involved in that as well. and 2 or 3 other cars getting involved.
Where's the
Spins
15?
and the like.
Sam Lehman's just absolutely ate it. He had nowhere to go. He was stuck in the, worst part of everywhere. But pinch points is another Corvette that was facing the wrong direction as well. I think that's either going to be Schweikart or Johnson, I think it was, right at the end of that replay there, Stuart. But it was all on. But up at the top of things, Murray and Boyd, exactly as they were in qualifying. Now they stand on the racetrack. Jack Boyd not wanting to let Cooper Murray get too far away.
No, and of course, as we've said, with that second race being reverse grid, these two want to maximise points at the start of this one so that they can make their way through. The start on the second race is going to be really challenging. As I said, with cold tyres, we're running a relatively late race here at Nurburgring, so it's going to be cool temperatures, and that is a tricky place to navigate on cold tyres.
Yeah, and there's a lot of flow and a lot of high. Well, I mean, you saw it. The lack of rear grip, the things that we're mentioning in the pre-show about, you've got to ride the brakes to get these things to turn in. Well, yeah, you do, but at the same time, you've also got to be really touch and go on the throttle, not to just overemphasize how much you're using. But I tell you what, Bergens, after that early little moment, has grabbed another couple spots back. He's sitting only in 4th place, sorry.
And he's using a fair bit of the track that we don't pay for there, just running a little bit wide, trying to get some turn out of the Martin. And what's he doing there? Slowed right down.
Slow down. Has to be a slowdown.
Must be,
Has to be a slowdown.
Because he did use a fair amount of the track, so I think you're spot on there. You've called it right that he's received a slowdown penalty. Of course, this new section of the track does join into the Nurburgring as people know it. And it's quite a fun track to run, actually. Go straight ahead here to join into the old section of the track, but the drivers bank around to the right to come back on to the main straight and complete lap 2 of...
Is that a Corvette missing its entire front end?
I did not see that. Whereabouts was that?
Josh Purwine. I think just in the rear view, the blue Corvette just in the background there, looking at Bergens.
And Jack Boyd has had an issue as well on turn 1, so we'll jump back and have a quick look at that. But he's dropped down into 3rd place now. Tom Katsadonis up into 2nd.
Well, Boyd making the early mistakes.
Yeah. Turn 1, it's so easy to get undone there. There's lots of track to run wide on. It's just rotated on him, I reckon. Yep. Because there's a clip there as well, Tom Katsadonis, so hopefully no damage to the front of his car. But it drops away the road there, and it's really easy if you jump on too fast and light them up to get the thing to turn around on you as well. So an unusual mistake from Jack Boyd, human after all. Yeah,
and like you mentioned, those cooler track temperatures really coming into these. White again! He's struggling.
Yeah, struggling with that.
Very un-Boyd-like, and I tell you what, if he got he might have picked up a slowdown. He might have just gotten away with the off-track there, but that's...
No, he's got a slowdown.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because that's exactly how far wide that Bergens was running just before. So now he's got Bergens ahead of him. I think this is the first time we've seen Bergens on track, no pit stop strategy, actually directly ahead of Boyd. So this will be an interesting battle.
And of course, Matty Cartaglione coming in hot behind him as well. So Josh Purwin doing a good fast lap as well last time around, faster than the cars in front of him. So he's making headway and is not too far off the back of Matty Cartaglione in 6th position.
I'm sure you see that blue Corvette. I'm sure you see that. Is it missing the front bumper on your screen?
Yeah, absolutely it is. So Josh Purwin there missing the front bar on that Corvette. And we've jumped on Boyd, of course. Well done, Stu. We've jumped on board with Glenn Boyd and highlighted in my timing screen because he is up 7 positions from his starting position. So we said there'd be a few drivers coming through. Ian McMahon up 8 positions and Dennis Katarik up 9 positions as well. So helped out there by that spin in the early part of the first lap.
Yeah, there's a few drivers there that we said right at the start were just in odd positions, and actually one of them who was in an odd position who's fallen down through the field is actually Trent Lavis. So he's obviously gotten involved in the lap 1 shenanigans.
He got involved early. In fact, his name was around about 5th on the list of cars involved in that incident, so he has been through pit lane.
There you go. Well, that clears that up, and things finally look like they're starting to settle down. Bergens appears to have found where the track limits are and what will constitute a slowdown, and maybe he's been showing Jack Boyd a thing or two. Hopefully those two guys know what's at stake. But then again, if Boyd can get out 3 places further up the grid than Cooper Murray in the second race for tonight, who knows what might happen there. We might see a little bit of intra-team rivalry start to form, because I can guarantee you, after such a consistent season last season, I was only a couple of weeks ago, Jack Boyd will not be happy about that. He was always very cool, calm and collected when he was in control. Now we've got to see a different side of him.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, he looks like he's struggling with the Aston Martin. I think it's through Dunlop, so we'll keep an eye on him here just to see if he does that again. Just where he got the off-track earlier on, just looked like the car, again, broke away from him, so maybe with his fixed setup, not quite suiting his driving style.
Oh, in the background, I actually just seen Jack Purwine look for a move down into turn number 1 on Cardaleone. Now, Cardaleone's gone wide for the better run through turn number 2 here. Gets things turning in nice and differently. Listen to the grunt. Listen to the sound of the Purwine Corvette trying to clamber all over the rear end of Matty Cardaleone. He might have a peek, might look to stick the nose down the inside down here. No, he'll just settle it down. I tell you what, he might have his eyes set on the hairpin in just another couple corners time. Oh, there he goes.
Lock up from Cardaleone there.
Yeah, now it's going to be Purwine pulling to the inside. He's got the primary run. Cardaleone makes a mistake. Purwine pounces.
Gets the job done, closes the door there. I thought he was going to struggle a little bit to get that one to turn in, particularly without that front bar on it. But he did a great job under brakes there just to get it through enough to get the car to turn in and to get the door closed on Cardaleone. Josh Purwine up to 5th position in the 777 Corvette.
If there's one thing you can say for sure, that is definitely using the old damage model.
Absolutely, yeah. That thing under the new damage model would have a blown motor and 3 of the wheels hanging off it. So, not sure iRacing got that one quite right yet, but certainly they'll continue to work on it.
I'll keep working on it, but the GT1s will be one of the last cars that get updated anyway.
They certainly will. Tom Katsadonis here. Just Luke Bergens has dropped inside a second behind him, so starting to apply the pressure there. And Jack Boyd a further second back, so this battle pack will develop. Cooper Murray has shot out to a 5-second lead at the front of this field.
Don't forget, in qualifying, Bergens had 150.013. Katsadonis, fastest lap was only a 150.558. Struggling with the rear end of the car. They're under acceleration, so some adapting still to come out from these drivers in the Aston Martin DB9 V12. Listen to the hum. Listen to the sound. Not just one, there's 2, there's 3 right there, all hard charging right now as Boyd, Bergens, and Katsadonis in reverse order look to hunt each other down.
And as you mentioned, Boyd as well, Glenn Boyd last lap around a 50.86, so he's dropped well and truly down under his qualifying time. And we're seeing the guys here doing times, early qualifying. They'll continue to go quicker, I think, but yeah, good job here from Glenn Boyd.
And other notes to make there as well is that Bergens dipped just slightly below his qualifying time, so lap pace is coming down, and a very, very slow lap the last time by for Katsadonis, so he is making some mistakes, and you can see it. Bergens is 100% closer. He's only just out. There was dust kicked up there by Jack Boyd in the background as well, so still the struggles continue. Struggle Street is not over just yet for Jack Boyd. Maybe he needs to use these 25 minutes right here to get himself warmed up and going.
Yeah, and as you say there, Katsadonis really slow through Sector 1, so maybe struggling a little bit down into the hairpin or on the double apex left-hander just early in the lap. Seems to be where these Aston Martins are probably struggling a little bit.
What?
We'll stay on board here, see whether or not we end up with a change in position here. What is Luke Bergens going to do?
Dives to the inside, gets a huge draft, late on the brakes. and still hits a reasonable apex as well. That is a very good move from Bergens, and Katsudonis trying the over and under. Well, Bergens wasn't born yesterday, friend. You're going to have to work a little bit harder than that. Now Boyd's in the picture as well.
We are on board the front of Katsudonis, trying to make up the position. He did have to try and go for the crisscross through the hairpin to get the job done. Not quite able to get it done though, with Bergens fully aware and closing the gate as quickly as he could. Really good to see there as well, that he was able to hold that Aston Martin through the double apex left-hander. Seen a few drivers struggle with that early in this race.
Especially from the exit that he had as well, that really wide exit. He needed to open the corner up through one. So, done a good job. Hasn't lost a huge amount of time, been letting Bergens by, so he's still got a reasonable defense. We are just about to come up on halfway through the opening race of the Oz Pass series, and I tell you what, things are still settling. There's a few guys to keep your eyes on the back in the pack. Matty Cardelloni is actually starting to drop a little bit further and further down. Purwine, I think, has gapped him a little bit. So that's
you're right.
Another one to keep your eyes on. So he's down 2 spots off his grid. Boyd down 2 spots off his grid. Obviously, we saw the issues that he had, and then obviously the off-track as well. But Purwine is slowly settling into this Corvette, although maybe he's shaved a few extra grams off the front end of that.
Yeah, absolutely he has. I'm not sure how that'll help him in a straight line. But certainly probably won't help him through some of the faster sections of the track. And it's going to be interesting to see where the strengths of these particular vehicles show themselves throughout the season across the variety of tracks we've got. Of course, we do culminate, as you'd expect, at Mount Panorama Bathurst on the 2nd of February. So we've got plenty of racing in between now and then in this series. And thanks to HJ Plant Repairs for jumping back on board again, Season 2, to sponsor the series. Prize money awarded for this series for the first 3 places as well. So welcome back to HJ Plant Repairs. Thank you to them for jumping on board with the series again.
Yeah, well, Jack Boyd got some work to do to earn his share of that prize packet once again. Purwine might be the best of our Corvette finishes. It was a little bit unstable going in there. Cardelloni was a mile wide heading in there. But have a look at this up in front. It's Katsudonis under pressure from the man that we know as our Season 1 champion. Jack Boyd slides by, grabs himself another spot back. That's 3rd, and that's a few extra points checked off towards his teammate.
Really strong pass there. I was just getting notification that Ian McMahon has had an incident as well. He's in the wars at the moment. Was involved a little bit earlier on in an incident with Buchanan and Guitarek. So just struggling a little bit as we've got 10.5 minutes to go here in the first of our 2 races this evening. If you've just joined us, our second race is a 45-minute compulsory pit stop race that is reverse grid based on the results of this first race here. Better give this man a little bit of coverage because he's blown the cobwebs away and well and truly out in front. Cooper Murray with a handy 6.5 second lead over Luke Bergens in 2nd place, lapping at around about the same pace as those behind him. So as Bergens just puts in a 49.9 last time around. So just, as you say, settling in and making sure that he maximises the points in this one. He's going to be coming through the field. You feel in race 2. There's a little bit of a lock-up there from the Cooper Murray Aston Martin. And
well, the good news is, if the rest of the drivers see that, yeah, well, to be perfectly honest with you, that what he would have constituted there, coming through the right-hander, that 100% being off-track. But
not a slowdown.
With it depends. Yeah, well, the slowdown's much further along. If you grab the grass or you use a little bit of extra the runoff area, then it can be a slowdown. But where he's driving's more than fine. He's well within it. Incident count penalties at 25x and a DQ at 35. And I don't have enough information on heat-based races like this is set up to tell you whether or not that gets reset between races.
I don't believe that it does. I believe it is cumulative, but we'll work that out as we go along. It's generally how it is. We're going to see a rotation here again in this Aston Martin. So the driver's just getting... Oh, gee whiz, and
that's
really well
move.
done there. I think that was Dennis Guitarek who just managed to get out of the way of that one. So as BJ Kennedy just over-rotated again. And not himself again. I shouldn't say that. It made it sound like he's had a few, but he certainly hasn't. But the Aston Martin we're seeing at the moment, just a little bit touchy. on rotation through the corner. Just a couple of the drivers pinning it to the spot and ending up facing the wrong way.
It's interesting. We might have to, the next time we see one of those, just keep a ear out, maybe go on board with them for the replay to find whether it's on the brakes or if it's as they start to pick up the throttle. Because it's something I was about to say before we crossed over to that spin was actually it'd be good for a lot of these drivers to just keep an eye on Murray and see that he's making these errors as well. So it's good to keep in the back of your mind that a lot of these drivers are making errors in cars that they're not used to, because it makes you feel a little bit more confident in your own skill set as a driver. If you see a few of the better guys that are making mistakes, they're just catching it a little bit earlier. Yeah, all right, there's some work to do, but we're not too far off. So
we're on board here with Justin Schweikert, whose name I murdered earlier on, so apologies again, Justin, but we'll get it right.
We'll get there. Practice makes perfect.
Absolutely. We've got the boxing kangaroo, I noticed, on the back right-hand rear corner of his Aston Martin. In fact, on both rear corners. Cool looking livery there. A lot of the drivers do the liveries themselves, or certainly they get them made, if not putting them together themselves. So we'll get used to the way these cars look. Let's jump back one further to Daniel Webster, running that iconic blue that he ran last season in the Mercedes.
On the grid as well. I've always liked it. Oh, there's a big inside front lock up there. I saw that wheel static for probably about 5 or 10 meters there, and that's not good for tyre for tyre life there for Daniel Webster. But no, it's always a pretty livery. I don't quite mind these ones from Daniel Webster. I hope he keeps them up.
Yeah, I think he's sponsored by Race Imaging. So
Racing Image.
So perhaps they put them together for him. A little bit further back to Ian McMahon, not running the traditional green that we saw him running last season either. He's gone with a much more dulcet looking, what do we call that? As he's equally like it. Maybe we're commentated cursing here. There's a right-hand front wheel lock up there from McMahon. Another really good, consistent performer last season as well, actually, with some podiums as well. So doing a good job. But we've just got to get used to these new liveries. As I said, the customary bright green that he was running last season, not making the transition yet to the Aston Martin.
Was it Lavis and McMahon that had the same livery last season? Were they working together? Absolutely. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to have a look at, because they're in different cars this season. Oh, that's a beautiful sound.
There's a little bit of the green that we're accustomed to. So this is Lavis we're on board with. So maybe they just haven't quite managed to get time to get that together. It looks almost like that thing's got a bit of Spider-Man happening about it. The Lavis entry.
Yeah, Skid Control. Sponsored entry, has on the rear bumper probably my favourite text I've seen so far this evening, not sim racing.
No, fair enough, and quite rightly so.
Oh, they're just so good. I'm sorry, Corvette, I like the Aston Martin straight up, but Corvette, listen to that engine.
Well, I mean, it's as close as you'll get to the sound of a V8 supercar, of course, with the 6-litre LS motor in these particular cars.
Is that a fan? Did you see that? The fan in the back end of the car?
Yes, that is absolutely spot on. Ground effects fan.
Oh!
Straight ahead there. We really are giving everyone the curse tonight. So I think that's the 4th driver in a row we've jumped on board with who's had some sort of issue. So we'll keep going here as Justin Schweikert getting reports that he has had an incident. Let's jump on board with that. Wanted to see here if we can pick that up, and of course the bridge is going to get right in the way. And yeah, he's just over-rotated it again, so just got it up on the curb, and I bet you it's just beached it a little bit on the under tray. And no, just over-rotation again.
I think he's just pushing a little bit hard. Yeah, he got a little bit unsettled coming through the left-hander. Corner approach wasn't quite right, and then yeah, it just all goes wrong all at once.
Yeah, that's it. So just a little bit of an over-rotation again there. So as we head back live with Cooper Murray. G'day, Frank. Thanks for joining us from Adelaide. As, Cooper Murray, Luke Bergens, Jack Boyd occupy the front 3 positions, but not without issue if you've just joined us. So it was Murray and Boyd on the front row with Bergens in 3rd. But,
there's a couple of things I'm looking at here. So remember how we were talking about incident points and We had a conversation, I think it was at OzPass towards the back end of last season, of when to use. It was at Spa. It was OzPass. It was the Spa round of OzPass. And it was about knowing when to use your incident points. Now, in Cooper Murray's shoes, right now, you want to be minimizing your approach. You've got a couple minutes left in race, so two to 3 laps, probably only 2 laps left in the race for you. So you want to be holding on to a few extra of those incident points up your sleeve. You can burn them off at will then in the next race. But somebody who hasn't been able to hold them up their sleeve is both Luke Bergens and Jack Boyd. So if Cooper Murray is just a little bit switched on, a little bit more aware of that, potentially Jack Boyd as well has actually backed off. He's about 3 seconds behind Luke Bergens at this point in time. So he could have realized that, and he could be planning his approach to the next race out already. So, you know, mind games, mental strategy, a few things to work on.
He's jumping on board there with Peter Hunter. Dennis Gatarik disappearing somewhere there as well. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for the like. We'll see you back out on track again soon. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened there with Gatarik. We didn't get any notification, but he was right on the back of Hunter and then just disappeared off track. So obviously running either straight ahead there at the corner and we didn't catch it. Running a really cool looking anime livery.
A few of those around. Could be a Good Smile Racing livery. There's a Japanese race team that's what they run. Pink anime styled liveries actually. So
we've got a bit of a battle here from McMahon and Schweikert as well. So getting notification BJ Kennedy's had another spin. Doesn't look to have cost him too much time though. Got a minute 45 to go. Where is our race leader at the moment? So we will get one more lap in.
That was a very sideways looking DB9 then. Just before heading down the backstreet.
Just having some internet connection issues there as well. Cooper Murray just blinking on the screen a bit and certainly blinking the headlights as he approaches Sam Lehman, I believe it is, in front of him.
Lehman's nowhere near anybody on track, which is good, so he'll probably just let Cooper Murray go. Probably grab the white flag this time by.
He will, and they'll be waving flags frantically and what have you, so just needs to roll out of the throttle here and run wide into turn 1 and let our race leader through. Plenty of room.
Lehman might just want an extra lap, who knows?
He could do, yeah, he may well want the extra lap. As far as he's concerned, he should be preparing himself at this stage to be starting off row 2 on the inside line in the reverse grid race. So that's certainly where I'll be at. But to be honest, it doesn't look like he's actually holding him up. So, but just pulls to the side there. And it was interesting. I was going to touch on as well when you're talking about spending the incident points. That of course they're going to have to come through from the back of the field, so they may need them. Bergens Boyd, particularly after spending those reasonably heavily in the first race. So we'll see how that goes for them as we get into the reverse grid race up next.
I mean, honestly, I'm not expecting a huge deal. The sensor system that we employ that as a part of our live race timing as the clock is actually going to tick down to 0. Just as Murray heads through the center portion of the lap, through the fast S's, slows it down to about 2nd or 3rd gear, left-hander here, right-hander, onto the back straight. I'm showing 15 for Cooper Murray, and I'm showing 15 for Jack Boyd. I'm only showing 9 for Luke Bergens. So, look, reverse grid races are renowned for their shenanigans, and if a few of those drivers find themselves on the wrong side of the shenanigans, I mean, we did say it is a compulsory pit stop, so it'll be about limping to make sure that you can get home on fuel, and then boxing immediately if you end up with a damaged car, as Cooper Murray crosses the line, lights out to flag in race number 1. Pull it over and straight back in the pit lane again, not looking to burn up any of those instant points. Luke Bergens grabs 2nd over Jack Boyd. I think the first time that we've seen Bergens beat Boyd in OzPass Sim Series. Tom Katsadonis is going to grab 4th place. Josh Purwine up 2 spots to 5th. Matty Cartaglione falls down the order from 4th place to 6th, but the huge movers are in the next few spots. Glenn Boyd up 7 spots from 14th to 7th. Peter Hunter up 5 from 13th to 8th. And Dennis Gitarik halves his starting position from 18th up to 9th.
Now, a really strong run there from a number of the drivers. Glenn Boyd, as you say, 7 spots up. Dennis Gitarik, 9 spots up. So they're going to basically start where they finished in this next race. Look to certainly consolidate that strong performance. And we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, certainly Cooper Murray, Luke Bergens, Jack Boyd. We're going to be saying their names a fair few times this season, as well as Tom Katsadonis. Great run from him. And Josh Purwine with that heavily damaged Corvette as well. So we did have an early race incident in race 1. Drivers will be looking to avoid that into the start of race 2. We're just waiting for a few of the stragglers to get across the start-finish line to finalise the heat, and then we will try and bring you the full results from that race before we head into the second portion of the evening.
Yeah, so a couple things to note. There's only a couple guys that were laps down there. Jeremy Clark didn't retake to the circuit after his opening lap incident, so he'll get promoted a long way up the list. We'll go into a 10-minute warm-up session at the conclusion of race number 1, which is basically just sort of a cool-down period. If you want to reset your client, now's a good opportunity to do so. Matthew P. Johnson electing to take that opportunity. So
yeah,
there's a few guys, actually.
Just a matter of watching through this one for the minute. I'm sure that we'll have these in every single week, but certainly here the drivers will elect to, I imagine, given some of the issues. Having said that, Peter Hunter there just pulling up right at the end of pit lane, so we'll just see if the stewards advance the session or not here.
Probably will, but yeah, it's a good opportunity for the drivers to rest, reset. A few of them will go out and just shake loose a few things, maybe reset and do a start on cold tires, get through. So for me, if I'm in these guys' shoes right now, and I'm starting towards, well, actually, it doesn't really matter. There's, you don't get the real opportunity to start with cold tires. I'm actually going to do a really slow outlap, trying to put as minimal tire temperature down as possible, and then from there, start the car up, sort of start getting into things right before the chicane at the back end of the lap, feign myself a start, pretend that there's a few cars around me and try and dodge them all heading down into turn number 1 and see what I can get done, and, hold a line. That's what it's about. If you're really trying to utilize every moment, every opportunity that you get, well, this is the perfect one to do that. You jump in a warm-up session, you've just had a race, you need to reset and refresh your mind, and Peter Hunter, a little bit of lock up there, that's one of the things he'll be wanting to avoid. Get it out now. No problem. Make those mistakes right now. Get it out of your system. You're aware of what the car can do on cold tires again. Resetting. In this second race, we've seen a lot of chaos throughout the first season. Actually, in the second starts of the longer races, causing a few issues for some of the drivers. So. Yeah,
definitely. So it's just going to be a matter of making sure that you are ready to go when this one restarts. So the drivers will be probably even just trying to address a couple of things that they might have been uncomfortable with in that first run. So we'll just stick on board with them here and see what comes of it.
Good weekend, Stuart. Get up to much across the weekend?
Good weekend, yes. It was, of course, today a public holiday in Victoria, so for the race that doesn't stop the nation. And yeah, enjoyed. It was my wife's birthday today, actually. So again, happy birthday to you, Kelly. So we did the usual things that you do there, which was good fun. And
yeah. Got outside. What's outside like, Stuart?
Yeah, it's amazing. I obviously all these rumours of actually being able to go outside and things like that when you actually get to do it, not underwhelming at all. So very good. Obviously looking forward more to when we're able to travel into regional Victoria. So hopefully that comes for us on the 8th of November. So just a few days away.
not to change the topic too quickly, but gee, that Josh Poywine Corvette looks a little bit better with a front bumper.
Absolutely, does. It looks more complete. Looks far more complete. So he'll be happy to have that car back together. Yeah, and what about yourself in regional New South Wales?
Well, we actually went to regional New South Wales across the weekend. Went up to some of my in-laws' properties and sort of spent the weekend up there. Unfortunately for us, found out that our air mattress is leaking quite badly, and a bit of a sore back restarting the week. So
never a good time to find that out when you're actually going to use it, and of course that's normally when you do find out. So
yeah, so
ideal.
No, other than that. Oh, I mean, this is a personal topic, but who cares? Let's go ahead and cover it. I like to get medical issues out in the open because it raises awareness. Had a hearing test on Thursday last week. Turns out I have slight hearing loss. So it's quite relevant because I think the source that I would have picked it up is motorsport, as Matthew P. Johnson finds the dirty edges of the track in our warm-up session for race number 2. I've been around motorbikes and motorcycling since I was 5. All the way through. Actually, I'm still around motorbikes and motorcycling to this day, so a very good idea that the hearing loss has probably come from there. So if you are thinking that your wife is constantly yelling at you, as was the case for me and what triggered my hearing test, go and get your ears checked out. Not a bad thing to do. Now, hearing aids are on the agenda for a 28-year-old, not something that you'd be hearing every day, but as I discussed with my hearing specialist, something that happens a little bit more and more often as more testing gets done. So definitely recommend it. Go and get into it. Learn a little bit more about your hearing. Learn a little bit more about how to look after your ears. And in a sport whereby you maybe sometimes have your in-game noises turned up a little bit high, or your IRL cars, you need to make sure you're wearing those earbuds. Block out some of that noise. Look after your ears.
Yeah, a very topical subject, of course, because it's this month. It is Movember as well, and raising awareness around changing the face of men's health. So a good topic for you to bring up and drop a mention for that. So plenty of people getting involved in growing mows for Movember. So if you've got a mate doing it, do reach out and drop a few dollars if you can. Raises money for a fantastic cause, of course. Never be too brave to talk about your health issues and go and get yourself checked out. I equally had my annual blood test done a couple of weeks ago and got the results, and all clear and all good, but if I don't get them, I don't know. So yeah, don't be ashamed to talk about it, absolutely.
Oh yeah, but there's definitely a history of cancer on both sides of my family, so it's something we're on top of as well over here. So definitely strongly recommend go and get, stay on top of your health. If you know, you know.
Yep.
If you know that you're good, you know that you're good. That's but if you know that you're bad, well, you're on top of it before it gets even worse. So there you go.
And it takes a few minutes to find out as well. So we're still on board here with Matty Johnson, just getting accustomed. Justin Schweikert did a 53.58.
I was about to say, Matty Johnson looked a little bit sharper that lap. Like, he actually looked like the car was pointed where he wanted it to go a little bit better. And, the pace is still coming up as the tyre temperature comes up. But good adaptations from a few of our drivers.
Just interesting to check as well the track temp there. So where are we? Down at 18 degrees. So no temperature really at all. Running quite late. So 7 minutes to 9 track time. So we should end up finishing this one just before the dark, maybe close to it. Where is it? May, so yeah, during the summer over in Germany.
Still, typical German evening, cold as anything.
Oh, absolutely. 18 degrees here, it'd be winter. So yeah, we'll get into that. So as I said, reverse grid. I'm really doing well tonight. A reverse grid run for the second race. I'll bring the grid to you when it comes up. Unfortunately, didn't want to play with us in the transition from Heat 1. Actually, we do have Heat 1 overall results now. Let's bring them up on screen because we can. Took a little while for it to play. There we go. Look at that. The system works. So for those of you just joining us, Cooper Murray, Luke Bergens, Jack Boyd finishing slightly out of qualifying order, but occupying the podium at the end of race 1. Tom Katsadonis, Josh Perwin, Matty Cartaleone, Glenn Boyd, Peter Hunter, Dennis Gutarik and BJ Kennedy rounding out your top 10. And it's back to Simon Lartner, Ian McMahon, Brady Buchanan, and Matty Johnson. Trent Lever's a low finish for him. Sam Lehman, Justin Schweikert, and we've got Daniel Webster down there in 18th. So it's reverse grid for the next one. So if you're looking for where your driver's going to start, obviously we'll bring the grid up on screen, but basically flip it around. It will be Cooper Murray, Bergens and Boyd from the back of the pack, and it'll be Daniel Webster on pole position, I believe.
Well, Jeremy Clark disconnected halfway through that first lap, so I just sent a message through to Matty just to sort of get confirmation on what the goal is there. So
he may not be running at all. So it's either way, it's going to be Daniel Webster on the front row. Just which part of the front row he occupies, as we've got around about 30 seconds to go here. We're just going to quickly flick to a commercial before we get back to bring you the 45-minute run for the main feature race tonight for the Oz Pro-Am Sim Series, brought to you by HJ Plant Repairs. Okay, so just a quick ad there for one of our broadcast partners, Aftershock PC, the computer supplier of choice for our business. And just looking here, and I think we may have a small issue.
that looks like exactly the grid order from the first race.
Spot on. So it was put down that it was going to be a reverse grid second race, which is why we've been carrying on about it all race, but it looks like maybe there might have just been an error there with the setup.
Hang on.
Just waiting here.
I thought I may have just heard them say that they're going to manually reshuffle it, so...
Wow. Okay. Well, this will be interesting. Hold on to your hats, everyone. Manually reshuffling a field of 19 cars is not an easy exercise, so...
No.
We'll just hold on for a second here and see what is what.
I'll tell you what, there's a little bit of shenanigans there going on between Jack Boyd and Cooper Murray, because there's a little bit of a crinkle on the rear end of Cooper Murray's car. Tom Katsadonis actually come on the comms straight away and said, "Hey, is this what team shenanigans are supposed to look like?"
Absolutely, definitely. I'd be doing the same thing, giving him a bump along down the straight, just to
okay.
Remind him.
Maybe there's no reverse grid? Question mark?
I think they're going to leave it be. It's too difficult to do it now as we're about to get underway and racing. Cooper Murray, Luke Bergens. Cooper Murray with very much the preferred line, and you can see their team strategy. Jack Boyd's going to defend hard as Josh Perwin gets himself right up on the inside there, makes a really, really good move. He's going to be in the wrong spot on cold tyres here. He's got to be careful. Oh, no, and he's got taken out there by Jack Boyd. Boyd struggling for grip, and he impacts Perwin, and that takes both of them out. They're going to make their way back down to the back of the field, and it is now Murray, Bergens and Katsadonis in the top three positions. Don't be too surprised if Boyd does receive a penalty as a consequence of that. Completely, unfortunately, lost grip there. May be seen as a racing incident, but nonetheless, as it is Cooper Murray, Bergens and Katsadonis taking us away in race 2.
Normally, so for those of you who aren't in the know, sorry, excuse me, and are just joining OzPass for the first time this evening, race controls normally Matty Cardelloni or Dennis Katarik, one of the two or both. But they're both in the cars this evening, running in 4th and 5th in this race. And they would have had a pretty good view of the first lap incident. Oh no! Schwerkeit is just involved in it in the first lap. He's not having a good night, is he?
No, and unfortunately, again, Jack Boyd involved in that one too. I saw him making a fair old crack back through the pack, and he's out of the race. He is going to have to limp that back to pit lane and get a fast repair done, so he is going to have a lot of work ahead of him. Potentially with broken steering there, not too sure, but yeah, unfortunately that not turning out too well for him as we jump back on board with our race leader.
Wow, what an opening first lap. We mentioned it. Come from warm tyres, back to cold tyres. You've got to make the adjustment. You've got to resettle. Look at the drivers that have made benefit out of that. All power to Josh Purwine. That move was phenomenal. Set himself up really well. Got a great jump on the opening lap, and unfortunately just caught up in something that he shouldn't have been. Completely and utterly a passenger. Not his fault, and the night goes backwards. Benefit is, if the fuel tank sizes are large enough from here, he may make it home. If not, some fuel saving may get him home. So, race isn't 100% over. It's just challenging.
And let's be fair, Jack Boyd, I reckon that's the first time I've seen him run into anyone on track. So, just a mistake there on cold tyres. It was the same in race 1. That outside of that corner, turn 2 is full of peril on the opening lap of the race, cold tyres, and just getting caught out there.
And don't forget, we were talking about in the break between races that it was a very cold track. 18 degrees Celsius is the ambient temperature or track temperature, one of the two.
Both.
What that does mean for the drivers is it's going to take them 3, 4, 5 laps before 3 laps before the tyres really start to come to temperature, start to get a little bit of life to them. 4 laps before they start to actually warm up and you start to get a little bit stable. 5 before you're confident in them. Okay, which is good for us because it means anything could happen yet because we're not quite settled in.
And obviously we've got non-dynamic weather here because the track temperature and ambient temperature are exactly the same. So this is deliberately set up this way. I did also see in the Discord during the week, late during the week, that there's a lot of conjecture around these cars' ability to stop. And when they're on cold brakes, just really difficult to pull up without spinning or any incident. So obviously seeing a little bit of that in the early part of the race as well.
Interesting. So Jack Boyd with some work to do on cold tyres, cold brakes before the next time out. Bergens, though, has decided that he wants to attach himself as much as possible to the rear end of Cooper Murray. Lap times were very similar in the last race. And I'll tell you what, the last time out, Bergens 150.09, 150.22 for Cooper Murray. Not down in the 149s yet, but getting very, very close. So they're reasonably confident in their cars, reasonably confident in the tyres, reasonably confident in the brakes so far.
Jump on board with Simon Lartner, who's under pressure from Daniel Webster. This is 4 positions, 6 and 7. Daniel Webster up 11 spots.
Well, yeah, he was victim. He was a victim of his own bad luck in the previous race, looping a few times in the early stages. Made a big adjustment by the look of things from his side of the coin. And when it all goes awry on lap number 1, sometimes you just got to find the clear bit of track, get through there. That's still a very, very bent Jack Boyd, as he's actually going to make his way past the 11 of Matt P. Johnson. Trent Lavis will now be the next car on the road for Jack Boyd. So,
and that was actually why I jumped on board. I can't believe after the impact that he had that he didn't jump through pit lane.
So it must be straight.
Must be straight enough. He's still doing... last time around he did a 51.5, so not lapping at the speed he was lapping at, but certainly good enough to make it through to the pit window, get the repair done, and then get back on it. So, interesting. Jack Boyd's night not quite as over as it may have seemed.
Purwine, though. Purwine definitely dived in a lane. His car looked a little bit more beaten and broken. Be interesting, because again, newer damage model versus older damage model in these sorts of things. So a little bit of experience there may have fallen in Jack Boyd's favour. I'd say he's not going to go much further than, say, 5-6 laps before we see him in the lane, though. I think it's about that sort of realm. that will get him home.
Just brought the battle box up on screen there just to give you an idea of the gaps between our drivers.
Schweikert, Brady Buchanan have just dived into the lane as well. So there's a few things going on. It's 45 minutes. You think a little bit longer. Hey guys, it's not an out-and-out sprint race. You can take it easy. No. No.
We can't even say because we're into the last 30 minutes because we're not. So just, yeah. I think the track combination new cars just getting drivers caught out of it.
All right. Interesting.
Back on board with Cooper.
So
the gap's dropped a little bit there to Bergens from 0.9 last time around to just on 7/10.
It was now in that draft window, but the bad side for Bergens is bigger, heavier cars, they tend to need a little bit more of that downforce to try and steer themselves around. So he's running down that aero wake. He's closed up another 10th on that straight, though. So the hole being punched in the air seems to be pretty significant. And Bergens making the most of it.
He certainly won't be happy as well with Murray blinking on the screen. Makes it difficult for the driver behind to certainly know where he's going to reappear. Of course, Murray being a reasonably strong driver, shall we say, should run the line, but just makes it a little bit difficult there. So that'll be playing on Bergens' mind a little bit.
The other thing that might be playing in Bergens' mind as well is fuel saving and fuel numbers. Again, GT1s, you don't see these cars. You're not quite able to really put fuel numbers. When you're driving a car like this that's not seen as much, number one, braking issues, tyre issues. So we've seen that. We're out of that phase of the race now. Now we're into the fuel game. Well, these guys would have had to have done a little bit of homework on what fuel numbers that they need to hit. If you're saving maybe 0.1 of a litre, yeah, over 45 minutes, that's probably a lap worth of fuel. It's probably going to be, if it's 3 to 4 litres, that's an extra second. You're not spending static in the box. But you've got to be saving that the entire of the way around. I don't think Bergens is saving. That's not Bergens' style for me. Jack Boyd would do it. Glenn Boyd, yep, definitely do it. Luke Bergens, I don't think I've ever seen him save a drop of fuel in his life, so...
Well, in this case it's free, so you might as well spend it. Jump on board with Luke Bergens now. Just give you an idea. I just found it amazing that the Aston Martin has probably the most basic dashboard of a race car I've ever seen that costs so much money. Which we just got the tacho counter there, you can see it, and a gear indicator along with some dash lights, so keeps the information relatively basic. No elaborate steering wheel, none of that sort of stuff. So we reach the last corner of this lap. Gap now down to 5/10 between Bergens and Cooper Murray.
And the first thing I noticed actually being on board with Bergens and Murray through that last corner, Bergens has got a little bit more on rails through that last corner, which sets himself very nicely up to get that huge run, that huge toe down into turn number 1. But I think, for me, Murray looks a little bit better on brakes.
Schweikert jumps into pit lane.
That's Schweikert's second time through pits?
No, that is his first.
Okay.
He's listed
I
as his
swear I
first.
saw him in earlier. I must be looking at Per1 and Buchanan.
No, it has just ticked over to 2, you're spot on.
Because he boxed with Brady Buchanan, so something else has gone wrong there for Schweikert, and he's come back in. He must have been short on fuel, because those guys were having issues. They were banging and bumping and rubbing a little bit, so they both come to the lane. Schweikert must have realised he's either short on fuel... That's a long stop.
No, I'd say that's damage repair for him. There was a note of an off-track on lap 4, so I'd say he's in damage repair mode.
Interesting. There you go. So something to keep your eyes on at the back of things. And don't forget, for these guys that are at the back end of things, Matty Johnson's come down through pit lane as well.
Yeah, so he likewise had a notification. But he that's actually a drive-through, I believe, for him.
Huh.
Oh, no, he's taking fuel on, so just timing screen updating a little slow at the moment. So he was stationary for 14 seconds, so he's taking some fuel on with a 43-second pit lane transit time. So I'd say just getting the fuel done that he needs to run to the end.
And that makes sense because Purwine. So let's walk through the stops that we've seen so far. Purwine 1720, 2 seconds of that'll be for a fast repair, 15 seconds worth of fuel. Yeah, about matches up. Matty P Johnson 14.17 seconds, fuel only. Yep, matches up, gets a stamp of approval. Brady Buchanan 15.7 seconds. A little bit of repairs to be done, mostly all fuel. So that about matches up. So we're going to be looking for pit lane stationary times in that, let's say, 13 to 15 second range.
Sam Lehman now enters pit lane as well. Well, the drivers opting for this around 30 minutes. Might be to get them out of traffic as well if they're stuck in the middle of a battle. So we're on board here with Simon Lartner, who's chasing Dennis Katarek. There's half a second between him and Glenn Boyd, half a second further back. There's a notification of Trent Lavis having an issue as well. And Peter Hunter.
Car backwards. That was Hunter, I think I just saw in the background of that shot just before. Yeah, so this will be Lavis.
This will be into turn 1. He's going to have had a spin and potentially Hunter having nowhere to go, coming through and hitting him.
Nope. I think that's a little bit of good relative awareness from Lavis. Lavis always seems to rejoin quite safely, so...
We'll jump on board with Hunter then and find out what the issue is there. Looks like he may have just had a single car slide, and there it goes. Same spot, we've seen that before. Almost a replay of incidents further earlier on in the evening.
Oh well. Get it out of the system now. Long season. I'd rather... It's more time in the cars. And I think that's... Look, there's going to be guys that'll join the series halfway through. And they'll be reasonable. But they're not going to have some of this race experience in cooler conditions. And I think any time that these guys are out here running in alternate conditions like this is only going to be in their benefit. So even though some of the guys that we normally see running a lot further up, so... I'm looking at Webster, Lada, Glenn Boyd, Trent Lavis. I mean, obviously, sure, Jack Boyd, but that's obviously different. They're all putting its experience is just going into the bank, and yeah, look, it's not a pretty Aston Martin, but it hasn't come down the lane yet either. So
yeah, he's making headway on Lavis in front of him, particularly after that spin, of course. Pulling in a whopping 5 seconds, so it won't be too long before Peter Hunter and Lavis will have a visit from the Jack Boyd show.
Wouldn't surprise me to see as soon as Boyd gets onto the rear of them for him to dive into the lane as well. I'd like to see him try and run a couple laps out in his own, get clear of those guys, and continue on up at the track, and get his damage fixed out of the way as well. But continue. I'm interested to see how the tyres wear on these sorts of things with Bergen's following in the wake again. Had a lot of issues in the last season with tyre management, did Luke Bergen's, but that's part and parcel of running the McLaren compared to everyone else running cars that are a little bit kinder to their tyres. Whereas this time out, Bergen's and Murray. Well, Murray's got the higher I rating, so... Initial things suggest that he should be better, but watch Bergen's just so quick through this section of the track. He loses a little bit here, and then down into turn number 1, but he's just so quick. He's trying to set himself up into the chicane. I think we're going to have a real fight in our hands. Maybe not this lap by, but probably the next lap.
Yeah, it's just been gradually decreasing, hasn't it? Over the last few laps, we sort of spoke about 6 tenths, 5 tenths, and we're now down to 3 tenths.
Just watching it balloon a little bit. Yeah, so like I said before, it's through here that Cooper Murray's quicker. And then any sort of... Bergens is just trying to hold steady with him. He locked brakes a little bit there just before, so he's lost a tenth. That throws him back a little bit. So all that work he's been building to try and get onto the rear end of... Cooper Murray goes out the window a little bit of tyre degradation, so a few things to play with here. And don't forget, we've also got to keep in the back of our minds the off-track limits as well. So Cooper Murray burned a lot of those up, potentially not as high as the 15 that we saw from that first race, but he will have burned, I'd say, probably somewhere in the realm of 10 of those. He only have 15 up his sleeve, whereas Bergens would have, I'd say, about another 5 extra instant points that he can burn over Murray. And there's a few zones on the track where we can make you up 2 to 3 tenths. First race of the season, Stuart, and we got a battle on our hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just having a quick look back down through the timing screen there. Lartner and Glenn Boyd now still battling there for 8th and 9th. It's close between 10th and 11th, which is Peter Hunter and Trent Lavis and Peter Hunter, my apologies. Jack Boyd right behind them as well. So there's certainly plenty of action right throughout the pack here. Tom Katsadonis is sort of running his own race at the moment. He's 5 seconds behind this lead pack, and he's got a good gap back to Matty Cartaleone as well. So yeah, plenty to watch, and bodes well for a really strong season for us on Ozpass.
I still think this is a wrong move from Jack Boyd. The only thing that maybe he's working with is it's about a 40-second transit time through the lane. Maybe he was looking at something to do with a gap back to Josh Purwide. But I can't... I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me why he hasn't dived in the lane yet.
He's got the move done on Peter Hunter, and Lavis is next up the road, so maybe he's thinking that while he is lapping it around the right pace for the cars that he can get past, make hay while the sun shines and then get the car repaired. Of course, he's losing a little bit of time to those leaders each lap, so yeah, not sure. We'll keep an eye on him.
The other thing maybe he's looking to try and feel out is running with somebody of Lavis's sort of skill level in the Corvette. Try and get a little bit of a feeling for where the Corvette's quicker and where the different strengths and weaknesses of the Aston are.
Potentially so. I don't know whether or not that's going to be crossing his mind at the moment. Maybe just trying to, as I said, minimise the damage there, but we'll stick on board with him here for the remainder of the lap. So he's involved in the battle. Gets the job done there. Great pass on Lavis. Just shoved it right through there. Lavis trying to break back here. And plenty of racing room given by Boyd there. So a good pass for him. Moves his way up into the top 10 after an action-packed first lap for him. Actually, the next car on track is Glenn Boyd. He's got a fair gap now to Boyd in front of him though, so he's in that window to get the car repaired, get the fuel on, and get himself to the end of the race.
He's definitely hurting for straight line speed.
And there he goes.
Oh, that's odd.
Into pit lane.
That doesn't make sense to me, Stuart, because he's cost himself over the last 2 laps. He's going to cost himself a second to a second and a half per lap, making a move on 2 drivers. That makes no sense, because that's 3 seconds he's effectively thrown out the window.
Yeah, well, there might be a play here. Maybe this was their fuel strategy. I guess we'll know if Cooper Murray comes in next time around. Maybe this was their fuel window and he was just getting to that number. So one thing you can rest assured is that now that car is repaired, he will be quick. So we'll keep an eye out for him as he comes back out onto track. And again, this battle now at 10th. So very, very close at the front of the pack now between Cooper Murray and Luke Bergens.
And this is where Bergens is strong, remember, ladies and gents. Gets a good run once again to head down the back straight. Through the kink to the right. I don't think he's close enough, but he'll have a look. He'll show the nose here. He just wants Murray to be aware that he's there. Starting to play the mind games as Bergens turns it into the last corner here. He'll dive on the brakes. Looks to start a little bit wider, turn it in a little bit later, straighten the car a little bit sooner, and get to full throttle as early as he possibly can. Murray, strong down into corner number 1. Bergens, I think, is too far back, but he's going to show the nose, I think, once more. No, he gets out of it. You can just see there's 5 or 10 meters there where Murray just gains all that that half a car length that Bergens makes up in the straight line back in the braking zone.
As you say, it's through here as well. Bergens just loses a little bit of time. We see that again there. It blows back out to 4 tenths. So definitely benefiting from the draft, I think, more than anything else. Faster through sections 2 and 3 and 4. Where he makes up most of the time.
Peter Hunter dives down into pit lane now. So Jack Boyd got through the lane, got a service, and I tell you what, if Peter Hunter's stop is a little bit quicker here, which it should be, than Jack Boyd may effectively have to pass him twice.
Yeah, we've got 37 seconds at the moment, the gap between, and we know it's a 43-second pit lane transition, so as Boyd comes around onto the last corner, so he should get the job done here. It's a long
theoretically.
Long main straight, of course.
I mean, the issue for Boyd now is that he's what? Yeah, there goes Boyd. Okay, so we got it done. I was close. I was a little bit worried there, but Hunter also had some damage to get fixed. So that eliminates that advantage that Hunter had over Boyd. Bergen's lost a little bit of time that lap, back out to half a second. Comes through the last corner, gains another 10th up. Now in a straight line. Just burning time away in that straight line as Cooper Murray. Maybe that little bit of a rough up that Jack Boyd gave him at the start of the race before they went green. I mean, it's the back of the car, so it shouldn't be too bad. But, well, you never know. End of the night. Sorry, you were about to say, imagine the debrief after the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. It was 4 or 5 Ks down. That's what I'd be saying anyway, even if it's not entirely accurate. So, well, just play the game.
Remind me to never drive an endurance race with you, Stuart.
Absolutely. So it is still Cooper Murray in the lead. Not too much changing further down the pack. Glenn Boyd, Simon Lighton are still close together. We've got around about 10 drivers yet to make their pit stop, which they will have to do. So we may see a flurry of pit stops at some stage. Certainly before race end, everyone does have to make that compulsory stop.
Closing again. So it's about that. Hasn't been able to get much further than 0.3 of a second is Bergen's. But again, really strong through this sector. A close up to about 0.3 of a second at the back end of this straight. Just barely dips below it. And it blows back out under brakes, back to about 0.4 of a second. Bergen sort of picks it up a little bit. No, he's back out over half a second again. So he's really struggling to get the car turned in or get the car stopped. One of the two for Bergen. So I think it might be under braking. I think he's just jumping on the brakes a lot earlier than Cooper Murray.
Yeah, well, I've just put the sector splits up on the screen there so you can see that red sector indicating where Bergen's is slower than Murray, and it is through sectors 1 and 5. So those more windy sections of the track where he is struggling, but certainly getting the benefit of the draft through the faster sectors 3 and 4.
But Sector 5, he should be better, because Sector 5 is mostly flat out. So
maybe just not getting through the S's quick enough, or around the hairpin.
He's made up, half a tenth there. So it's close. I don't know. But then again, the amount of mistakes we've seen so far from these guys tonight, and just adapting to a different race car, like, it strongly could just be they're both very, very close, but they're not as accurate as they really want to be in these cars tonight. Whilst they're quick, their consistency is marginally off from where they'd both prefer to be. I can tell you so far that the last lap for Cooper Murray was a 150.02 and Luke Bergen's was 150.08. However, that should have been Cooper Murray's fastest lap of the race so far, but there was an off track there somewhere which cancelled it out. So he's definitely burning through that incident point limit, and I think he's aware of it.
Yeah, good pick up there. That's absolutely the case. So we'll need to be aware of that. 19.5 to go here. Race 2, the main race of our night tonight at the Nurburgring.
Bergen's has got to do the opposite to whatever Cooper Murray does on pit strategy. Bergen's has got to do the opposite. He's struggling. undercut, overcut. If he's struggling in terms of downforce and grip in some of the sections of the track, well, give yourself an extra 1 or 2 laps. If you're starting to get, if you've got 2 laps, say, of fuel left over, and you're coming up to the line, I'd show my nose towards pit entry, just to see if you can fake him out. Because then if Cooper Murray has to do a late dive, well, he's already committed to the pit lane, and then you can drive on by. Alternatively, if he doesn't go, you can go. Give yourself an option. It's only going to be 1 lap. If Bergens goes to the lane first, for me, Cooper Murray goes straight away the next lap. No way he gives him an extra lap, because he wants to make sure that he covers him off in all aspects. I can pretty much guarantee that Boyd and Murray will have somebody on comms for them tonight doing pit strategies and small tweaks to the fuel numbers and those sorts of things. So they'll have somebody sitting there. Bergens, I don't think he'd have that benefit of having a crew chief, crew engineer to make fine tweaks to the fuel numbers to look to gain that small edge in the pit stops.
Luke Bergens is the fastest second sector of the race.
Which is odd, because I thought he was drifting back there. He looks slow. So
ironic, but yeah, that is what he has done on this lap. Fastest second sector, so 3/10. But definitely going to have to roll the dice with one of those strategy calls. I completely agree with you about the little fake. Seeing if you can lull someone into thinking that you're going in, maybe just distract them a little bit, force that error. Got nothing to lose.
It wasn't Nurburgring, it was Hockenheim where Hamilton had to drive over the pit entry. Hockenheim 2019, when he got the damage coming through the last chicane and managed to get it back over and into the pits.
Yeah.
It just brings up memories of that, doesn't it? A little bit, but that's for a different reason, mind you. iRacing can hand them a penalty here for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's a cut course, cut unsafe pit entry. So I think I think that's 20 seconds out of the stop. I don't think that's the full 40. It could be the full 40 though.
We have seen, just while we're going through that, Glenn Boyd has made his stop. So Jack Boyd now up behind him. And we've got as well Matty Cartaglione having done his stop. Simon Larton are currently in pit lane.
Interesting to see where Simon pops back out. Guys that are running long. So interesting to note here, guys that are indeed running long. So Cooper Murray, obviously on your screen, have been for so long. Tom Katsadonis, BJ Kennedy, Dennis Katarik, and Daniel Webster and Trent Lavis. So it'll be interesting to see where Webby pops out. That'd be an interesting one for me.
Also to note that the lap time drop-off across the field hasn't been that significant. Last time around we had half a dozen drivers doing pretty much the same lap time, that 150, around a 155, 150.5 that the leaders were doing. So the drop-off between the cars not too significant.
And interesting to note that Jack Boyd was the fastest man on track last lap. So, and he, for most of his first section of the stint, was running in the 151s to 152s, just purely... Oh! Well, does this say that there was only 1 lap worth of fuel left in the tank? Man, he cut that fine too! That car was locked up coming into the box. Stuart, there's a race!
Absolutely, so we've got to keep an eye on that. Hopefully you didn't get a drive through. Tom Katsadonis also joining him in pit lane. So Luke Bergens there on the headlights. He knows he has to run this lap as hard as he can. There's only a 10th in it when the split happened into pit lane. And Bergens knows that he can make that up potentially on the entry to pit lane if he's brave enough to do it. But certainly throughout the lap here, try and get the benefit a little bit of the draft if he can from Matty Johnson that he's coming up on the back of. But definitely here the opportunity for him to come out in front at the end of his pit stop.
Well, Murray went in because he was coming up on the rear end of Matty Johnson. He has not jumped off those lights the entire lap around Bergens because he cannot get held up here. Look at the brake disc light up as they come into the hairpin there. Johnson gets out of the way. So Bergens is now pushing. And it's going to be a huge charge. And I think the reason that we were seeing Bergens really weak under brakes was that he was fuel saving. He saw that there might have been an opportunity. Oh, listen to the tyre squeal there. That is a man on a mission. Luke Bergens pushing for all money here through the final sectors of the lap. Does he dive into the lane? Is there another lap worth of fuel? I think he's dry. I think he's got to come in.
Also, the last man on track to not have completed a pit stop yet is Luke Bergens. And he's
Whoa!
in. Just, but he's in. See how close he gets to the line. Very aggressive under brakes, right up to the line, maximising his entry speed as much as he can. So what we're going to do now, jump on board with Cooper Murray. Let's see where he's at. How's this one going to play out? He equally can't afford to be held up by anyone. Did come back out in the lead though. Did come back out without losing a position, I should say. And he is coming around the final corner now. Luke Bergens, 30, 31,
Still in the box.
32. He's going to be heading out of pit lane any tick of the clock. Of course, he is at the far end of pit lane. How big is the gap going to be? He's leaving now.
1.5 seconds.
Oh, it's a big gap.
So, Murray's short pit. Murray 100% short pit. That is the benefit of having somebody in your corner doing the numbers for you.
3 seconds overall. So pit lane transit time 43.5 for Bergens, 40.9 for Cooper Murray. Bergens fueling for a second and a bit extra, which is interesting. Interesting that he needed to take that extra on, as you say. The benefit of someone of calculating those numbers in the background for you, letting you know Cooper Murray there, just getting an off-track notification as well. So that factor may not have played itself fully out yet, but a substantial gap in the context of this race. 3.5 seconds now between Murray and Bergens. I can't see him addressing that unless there is a mistake. Interestingly enough as well, Trent Lavis has moved in front of Jack Boyd. In fact, my apologies, Glenn Boyd has moved in front of Trent Lavis there.
Which means that Jack Boyd will have to get past Trent Lavis, I think, for the second time.
Yeah, I believe you are right. So we've got 11.75 to go in the HJ Plant Repairs Ozpass series. Obviously, you know where you are on FGM eCast.
The place to pass.
Not
the place to pace.
Any of those sort of be there kind of comments that we're probably not pioneering. The E place for pace, I think we're pioneering a little bit, but you know, it is what it is.
Be there and hope that your tyres aren't square.
Yeah, we can run with that. Let's hope they're not square. That could be deadly. It's Cooper Murray. You see the brakes glowing now with dusk setting in.
That's a great sight.
At the Berg. Luke Bergens crashed. Luke Bergens has gone off track somewhere. Let's jump on board. He's into turn 1. No surprises. Not because of Bergens, but because turn 1 has grabbed just exactly that same problem. A number of drivers here tonight, and that will be all she wrote. That gap now out to 12 seconds. What that does do, though, is give potentially Tom Katsadonis an opportunity to move himself up the leaderboard one further spot. It's just now 2.5 seconds behind Bergens. He's got a reasonable gap to Cardaleone of 2.5 himself, so not really under too much pressure.
Talking about pretty liveries, the Full Send Racing Aston Martin looks fantastic. Would you call that tribal coloured artworks?
Yeah, I don't know what I'd call it, but it does look very impressive. Whoever that is in the background flashing lights, I think it's Matty Cardaleone, try to play some mind games. I'd just start laughing at that across the driver's channel, of course. 2.5 seconds away. No need to be flashing. No need to be flashing your headlights whatsoever, unless there's a spider in the car or something like that. You're letting everyone know that you've got a trouble. Definitely not the case here. So Katsadonis just it's pretty stable at the moment. Everyone just lapping in that 150 lap time. In fact, last time around between Katsadonis and Cardaleone, there was 1/100th of a second between their lap times, so there's no gap closing down there whatsoever. Again, Jack Boyd just jump on board with him as he's all over the back of Trent Lavis. A familiar sight from last season, of course.
I don't know what's scarier. Listening to the sounds off that exhaust note of the Corvette of Lavis in front of him as Boyd tries to set him up, looking for the crisscross, not quite close enough. He'll set him up and have a go down into turn 1, I think. I was just about to say whether or not I'd prefer to have the exhaust notes of that Corvette in front of me or behind, looking for a good exit. A little squirrely for my liking for Lavis coming onto the main straight to cross off another lap. And it will be Jack Boyd, I am sure, pointing the pointy end of that Aston Martin down the inside. Looks to get on the brakes, stamps on the anchors. It's not done yet. Lavis defending really well around the outside. Great fighting, great racing from both drivers. Gets a little bit sideways, stepping on the gas once again. Just Lavis looking for a little bit tighter entry, mixes up the braking line. Boyd crawls all over him through the slow right-hander. It brings them up in towards the middle half of the lap. Still not done. I don't think Boyd has got an easy job ahead of him. I think Lavis might have a shot at some extra points here tonight by keeping Boyd in the rear view. And look at the cars just ahead of them as well. I think the next car up the road is Glenn Boyd. He's only just in the headlights there of Lavis. Lavis wide on corner entry. Looks to diamond the corner off a little bit. NASCAR racing move there and gets a great run up the hill. So that's really working. He makes him vulnerable in the mid corner. I think that's where Jack Boyd sliced through him on the earlier, Stuart.
Yeah, absolutely, and just looking at it here, Lavis looks to be driving that Corvette extremely hard to try and keep it in front of Jack Boyd here. Boyd a little more under control, Lavis driving really hard to do that, so all on the line here, high-risk stuff, and always, definitely in my mind, the better caution to take the points, particularly this early on in the season, but he'll continue to battle on. See here whether or not Boyd can get close enough, get a good exit there. You can see the Martin easier into the entry of the corner, but the Corvette, as you say, getting a great drive off the corner and opening that gap right up again on the main straight. Still within the draft, but definitely not going to be close enough to get anything done into turn 1. Although he's going to try. He's very much going to try. He's going to try the crossback, and that's worked again. He's on the outside here of Lavis, but he just can't quite get the switchback done. He needs to get down here. Or he might be far enough up here to get it to stick. He is, and again, this is going to continue. Now Lavis in the ascendancy.
Still not done.
And he's got it done. He's closed the door there. Great driving from Boyd and Lavis.
Actually, Trent Lavis immediately on the radio says that was a great pass there. So great respect. These guys have driven hard at each other. Whilst their I ratings might actually be a fair few classes apart and those sorts of things, that's not the first time that I've seen them together on a racetrack in a league racing session. So great job by both of them. But now, a little bit further up the road and another Boyd in the name, it's Glenn Boyd fighting against Sam Lehman.
Yeah, the gap here just right down into 3/10. So see if Glenn Boyd can make the same thing stick. Another Aston Martin versus Corvette battle. So I should say relatively the same strengths and weaknesses of the cars here. That Corvette definitely stronger mid-corner and exit. Aston Martin able to carry more speed into the turn in for the corner.
Just seems stronger on the brakes.
Yep, absolutely.
I think. So.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. Picked early on. Definitely better of the two under brakes. Not all that uncommon though.
Oh!
Well done. Big move there. What's going on there? Sam Lehman just pulls right out of it. Glenn Boyd actually at the end of it lucky to avoid running straight up the back of him.
Yeah, it was a slowdown. Both the drivers discussing it immediately on the voice comms. I think Sam could have chosen a better moment to try and burn it. Now he tries to get down the inside, squirrely under brakes, locks a few. That does help Jack Boyd though, because now he is only 1.5 seconds behind this, and with 4 minutes on the ticker, all of a sudden Jack Boyd might have his father to thank for an extra couple points in the bag this evening.
Yeah, well, even still against Glenn Boyd, Jack running 2 seconds or second and a half quicker last lap around, so definitely lapping quicker than those cars in front of him. Of course, Lehman with that slowdown, so the reference point of Glenn Boyd a little bit more appropriate So there's every chance he'll get his way up onto the back of Sam Lehman here. Now just under a second. We're at 8/10 between the two. So that is certainly not decided, that battle there. This is another
So
one
leader's
that's
about
really
to cross
close.
the line as well.
Can we,
sorry, just to cut you off there. So it'll be 3 laps to go
3 laps to go.
from here.
Can we just highlight the fact that Josh Perwin's got no headlights?
Yeah.
I'm not
At
sure
some
how that happens,
stage.
given that they're automated, but you know, be that as it may, that might make it a little bit difficult for him.
We're struggling to pick up braking markers, and
Yeah,
I think he's made a
absolutely.
few mistakes. He's had his race in the 488 machine of Dennis Katarek, so this is another good little fight that I think might be forming.
And Jules jumped into the chat. Welcome, Jill. Good to see you watching again. Been a tough night for Jack. So Glenn's doing his usual tricks. He's got notification of Matty Cartaleone coming off track. He is a long way up the road though, 19 seconds. So I'd say that was just a little spin into turn 1. I'll just stay on the battles here rather than bring up that replay. As I can tell you now, Lehman under heavy pressure here from Jack Boyd. This is where he likes to do his work. Little tiny lock up on the brake there. Another slowdown, in fact, running wide there. Oh no!
Glenn Boyd!
Glenn
That's Glenn
Boyd.
Boyd around!
Around in the mid-turn, in the mid-corner. Have to jump back and see what the go is there. Whether or not he got tangled with Matty Cartaleone or not.
Surely not.
Say it's just another solo spin. These Aston Martins really not liking that low cut into turn 1. Exactly the same position again. So we've seen it times. Oh, and really, to be brutally honest, really well done to avoid the car there. I think that was actually Jack that avoided it.
It was, yeah.
And not the great finish there. The Aston Martin's very susceptible to those rotations that we've seen. A good dozen of them tonight.
Well, both cars. I mean, they've not been easy to drive. I think Josh Perwine self-spun in the first race. Jack Boyd self-spun in the first race. Those guys have got a little bit of work to do. Daniel Webster's climbed. Is that correct? 11 spots.
Yep.
For Webby.
Yep. Is indeed, because it was based on finishing order, not reverse grid. We were expecting him to be up the front of the reverse grid. But obviously with that not playing through, he has just managed to progress.
Oh, word. That's a phenomenal drive from him. Kept it clean by the look of things and done his job.
We've got a minute 24 or a minute 18 to go now. This will be, next time around, it will be effectively the white flag. So it is Murray, Bergens and Katsadonis at the moment in the top 3.
Well, I was about to say, before we noticed that Cartaleone looked like he had a spin in the first turn, he's had a very quiet yet productive night. Have a look at the quality of drivers that's right around him. Katsadonis, before he spun, Katsadonis would have been only 2 or 3, maybe 4 seconds up the road from him. He's ahead of Dennis Katarek. He's ahead of Josh Perwine, albeit that's due to Josh Perwine's mistake. He's ahead of Jack Boyd. He's ahead of Trent Lavis. Like, Matty's a great driver, but he's also put himself in a really, really good position to capitalize on mistakes of the others around him. So, and good job to good old Cartaleone.
It's played out well for him. I know he's excited to get into these cars.
It was a landslide vote
Boy,
to suggest...
Lavis there, almost rearranging the right-hand rear corner of Sam Lehman's vehicle.
A little bit of Corvette on Corvette action. That's just the line that we've seen Lavis has been running all night. It makes him, again, very vulnerable in the middle of the corner because he's got to stop, turn it, but then it makes him very strong in the acceleration and it makes him go very deep into the corner. So that's the risk that you run. I think we're on the white. Yeah, so there'll be one more lap to go through for those guys next time by, and that looks to be... So it's Jack Boyd and BJ Kennedy are at it. Josh Perwine and Daniel Webster are at it. And Trent Lavis and Sam Lehman And I tell you what, I think a move might have just happened. Boyd is under a tenth of a second behind BJ Kennedy. He is right there. He was thinking about a move coming through the chicane. He'll line this one up. I'm sure he'll look to the inside here. Does he want to defend? Kennedy says, no, I'm going to try and stick it around the outside. The over and under. Boyd has to really pull the car up. Kennedy not quite satisfied in the middle of the corner there, but he's going to have to yield, and Boyd takes another spot away.
The other one that's going on behind it is this one. Oh, there's a big slide there from Lehman. He's on the outside of turn, I think that's turn 4.
Did that wing mirror just fall off then?
Well, look, it is an American-built car, so there's every chance that the wing mirror will fall off at mid-race. It's probably harsh, but reasonably fair. There it is. Yeah, it's missing off the driver's side of the car there.
Well, that says to me, if you have a look at the scraping as well, he might have had just a little side-to-side contact with Lavis there, because I don't think the wing mirror should have fallen off. Anyway, but regardless.
Taking nothing away from this man, Cooper Murray, who goes out as the first main feature race winner. In fact, doing the double here tonight. He's taken race 1 and race 2. A fantastic drive there for Cooper Murray to take out our first round. Luke Bergens, likewise, a solid run from him, taking out 2 second places. I think this is where the battle's going to be at for the year, along with Tom Katsadonis. A great effort from him to finish 3rd. So some really strong running right throughout the field. I think we're going to be in for a treat on Tuesday nights for the rest of this season. Definitely.
And it's not just going to be as simple as driver versus driver either. It's going to be driver versus track or driver versus car, because that's if there's one takeaway from tonight, is that even the best are struggling.
Yeah, and I guess that's the mark of a good series. You know, where the top drivers are troubled or are struggling. You know, that's where we really know that things are probably right. Just I can't stop focusing enough on the fact that I want to see how it develops at the different tracks, particularly the rotation issues for the Aston Martin that it seems to have mid-corner at some of these sharper turns, particularly when we were going through Yokohama or turn 1, really struggling to do that. And look, a lot of cars do struggle through there. It's a drop. I mean, it's not you know, the dipper, but it's a drop and it's off camber, so it does grab the car and they beach and spin. But you know, it's just going to be interesting to see how it develops across the tracks.
Oh, look, interesting night. A lot of takeaways from me. I was just actually going to have a look up a little bit. I think Burgo's just joined us. Well, not joined us. He's joined the Discord server, so he'll be jumping in, I think, in a few moments' time. But look, a new champion for, well, he won the wildcard race last time out, and back on top again this week is Cooper Murray. It means Jack Boyd is going to be pushed to the limit. He's got a big mountain to climb with mistakes in both races tonight. That is, I think we saw him in the first season spin an entirety of once.
I am 99% sure that the only time I saw damage on that car was in the last round of the season.
Well, I was thinking Sebring, I saw him go around, but that was the middle of the day, and it was an endurance race as well, and it was a very, very hot track. So, yeah, look, he pushed that car to the limit quite a few times, and there was not often at all that we saw that that car upset. But Luke Bergens jumps into the commentary box. Luke, second place, start off with. How are you adapting to the Aston Martin? It looks tricky.
Yeah, it is actually a very tricky car. It's actually very unpredictable. You're never too sure what it's going to do.
Should be used to that with the McLaren, mate.
This is actually just as bad, I reckon. One lap it feels really good, and the next lap it just wants to turn you around. So you just got to be ready for it.
Yeah, we did see a number of drivers struggling. We're just talking about it into turn 1, where they take the tight entrance into that corner and just manage to beach the car and spin it. And also through turn 2 on the cold tyres, particularly cold track temperature for the run tonight, with 18 degrees ambient and on track. How did that affect the car early in the run?
Yeah, well, as you probably seen in the stream, first race it caught me out. just the cold tyres, and then the rears just want to and you never know when it's going to go. It just snaps into oversteer, and away you go.
Incident limit.
Hey Tom, do you want to jump into the box, mate, for a chat?
Yeah, no worries.
And
Good race though.
Is Cooper around?
No, he can't jump in. He's got an important phone call, I've been told.
All right, no worries at all. Thanks, guys.
But really good race, Tom. Bye, Tom.
Sorry about that, guys. Just trying to grab Cooper Murray, who unfortunately has had to run off. But we are joined by Tom Katsadonis, who had a really strong run as well throughout the evening and finishing third in the main race, Tom.
Yeah, I was happy with it considering I've never raced at the track. I'm pretty unfamiliar, and I had limited practice time during the week, so I think I really maximised what I could get out of it today.
Wow. if that's the case, that's really good. That's a very, very strong performance. We're pretty excited, actually. We're talking about it in the break between the two races, that we've got a really, really strong pack of probably 10 drivers, not to discredit anyone else throughout the field, but it was unusual to see the likes of Trent Lavis, qualifying in 17th position. It's not something that we came to see last time around, and some new names up at the top. Obviously, Luke as well. Just interested to see how you get on, not being in the hamstrung McLaren, and running the same equipment as the guys around you.
Yeah, it brings it back to a kind of level playing field. So, kind of shows who has that edge on just everyone else. But there's a fair few quick drivers in there. So once everyone's all together, it's normally pretty close racing.
And next time around, we head to Imola. Obviously, where the Formula One was this weekend. What do you think? What are you thinking about the Aston Martin there?
It'd be interesting. Imola's a fairly low grip circuit, so obviously these cars and that circuit probably be a bit of a handful as well, I reckon. But should be good fun.
Last but not least, then I guess, Luke, anyone to thank for this evening?
I'd just like to thank the organisers for putting on the series, and obviously you guys for broadcasting the show for us.
Always love a little bit of love as well. Tom, what about you, mate? Any team sponsors or anything like that you need to give a shout out to?
Yep, my team, Full Send Racing, Steen, who organises everything behind the scenes for us, and our sponsor, Frozen Speed.
Fantastic, good to see there. And thank you for joining us, guys. Obviously, we'll see you back next week at Imola. Scotty, as we always do, your moment for the evening. We've got two races, mate, probably the top two.
First and foremost, I think seeing both Luke and Jack make mistakes in the first races was uncharacteristic for both of them. And then follow that up in the second race to actually have, what was it, the last lap? I think we said we had 4 separate battles, or three or four separate battles on the final lap of the race.
Yep.
All for points, all for positions, and all for things that count. What a great drive through the field. It was definitely a difficult night out, or night in the office, but once the damage was done, there was no resignation from Jack Boyd, which is good. There was always a hunt. There was always looking for that next opportunity to grab a few extra points. So, look, a little bit of work to do from his side of the coin, but Jack Boyd, I have no doubt in my mind that he'll come back next week bigger, better, brighter, and stronger.
Yeah, I must admit, for me, definitely the battle between Cooper and Luke, less than 5/10 for a fair portion of that second race was great for us to watch the different strengths of the drivers around the track across those two cars, and that was really good to see. And I think just overall, just the spice up has worked really well so far, with the diversity or the change in drivers occupying that sort of top 10. So it's going to be really exciting to see how the series develops over the diversity of tracks that we're going to cover. Heading to Imola next week, it's not a track that we see very often on many of these series, so it's good to see some variety, not just running that same sort of 5-track setup that 5 to 7 track setup that we generally see. So I'm going to be keen to see how it develops as we get into the season proper.
And something else to keep in the back of your mind, though, is if you guys are supporting somebody who you find generally in sort of the mid-pack, there's going to be some opportunities this season for some of those drivers in sort of your Daniel Ricciardo sort of situation in F1, Pierre Gasly sort of style situation in F1, if you do follow a little bit of that right now, where there's going to be opportunities to put themselves onto the podium. So I'm looking for a few of those drivers just to wrap both hands around it and not make mistakes at crucial times.
Yeah, absolutely. So that does bring it to the end of this coverage of the Oz Pro Am Sim Series Round 1 official. And what a round one it was. Fantastic racing. We'll have some highlights packages up on our social streams over the coming couple of days. But do join us again next Tuesday evening as we head to Imola for round 2, another sprint round. There is an enduro in a couple of weeks at Le Mans. And we also have Zandvoort coming up in a fortnight's time as well. So, as I said, some tracks we don't generally get to see getting used in these series, so really good to be able to bring races to you from there in the coming weeks. As always, we've got plenty on this week. In fact, next up for us is the Australian Endurance Championship Grand Finale from the Nurburgring. So not this, the full layout. We get the 24-hour layout out for that race. That's on Thursday night. And Scotty and I will be bringing that one to you. And then, heading back into our Sunday night stream. So it does tail off for us a little bit towards the end of the year here as life gets in the way, as it generally does throughout December. So we'll see you again next for us on Thursday evening on FGM eCast, your e-place for pace. Scotty, thank you very much for joining me this evening. And we will catch you on Thursday.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening. See us on Thursday when we try and tame the green hell.
Absolutely. Who will win? You'll have to join us to see. Thanks very much, everyone. We will catch you then.